I am so excited to interview local author Maile Fuchshuber. She is a mother, cancer survivor, freelance writer, improv professional, insurance professional, multifarious artist, and the main reason why I was connected to her is that she published this amazing children's book that I think is good for adults as well. Little Bat finds their amazing self, her amazing self, and his amazing self. It's a self-love series, and she'll explain why there are three versions. And thank you so much for this time, Maile. Let's
Hi,
share
Karen.
about your that must have been such a journey. You just shared that your daughter was
Yeah.
16. Can you share a bit
Well,
about that?
well, thank you for having me on the show. And I'm glad we've met up, and Des is kind of has looped us in together to know
Yes,
each other. So
yes.
that's really cool. Um, about cancer survival.
Hmm.
Yes,
As a
I that
mom
happened.
and how you handled it with your daughter.
hmm Um, that was really, it was scary. It happened when I was diagnosed when I was 33 years old. I was very, very fortunate to catch it early. Um, so a lot of the fear-based trauma is still there. It's still very present today. If there's like a pain or something, I'm like, ooh, what is that? And there's you still have to keep up with your doctor's appointments and things of that nature. But at 33, finding that out, that was a big blow for me, because you don't anticipate that you're going to be so young and have to go through that. But cancer does not discriminate age. And my daughter was 16 at the time, and so it was really hard, actually, to let anybody know that I was going through that. And a big part of it was because I was feeling like a failure. I was feeling, my mortality, and feeling the possibility of, well, the unknown, because it was just right when I got the diagnosis, and I still hadn't gone through all the steps I needed to. And so initially it's like, am I going to survive this? Have I taught my daughter enough? Have I loved my parents enough? Have I been here enough for my friends? Like, I'm not ready to go anywhere. And so that was really difficult to let people know that I was going through that. And I think also from an independent standpoint, I didn't want to burden anyone with having to either care for me or to tippy toe around my feelings. And I was also a little bit wary of what people would tell me. Like, I didn't want people to tell me that I'm going to be okay, because in my mind it
Oh,
was like, you don't know that,
what do you think
right?
is the best thing to say? Because sometimes that's like the common default. It's going to be okay. And then you want to say, but you can't say that. So what do you think is something that is appropriate to say in a situation like that?
Well, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, it was always just enough to have the support of my friends and my family,
Just
which was
being there.
basically being there, being quiet, letting me cry it out, letting me be neurotic, letting me, Google everything I needed to, and just being there beside me. Laughter was a big part of it. And that was a life-changing moment for me. I think my life turned in a completely other direction. Health was definitely more um, uh, prominent, as well as, eating and exercise and all the things that you kind of go through when you're trying to control the situation you have, plus trying to prevent any further, you know, situation with cancer. A lot of it can be preventative. And so for me anyway, in getting into that, having that experience, it
How
set
did
me
it
on a new
affect your
course.
mother-daughter relationship with your
With
daughter?
my daughter, um, it was positive. I don't remember really, but I think I told her about it right before I went into surgery. So she didn't have much time to prepare for that either. It was something like, oh, wait a minute, what's happening? And I'm like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be fine. And let's not talk about it. Like, let me just
Wow.
get through this first. Right. Because it's very difficult to talk about when you're trying to focus on surviving,
Hmm.
and understanding what is entail for the situation you're in. And yeah, so there was a lot of change there with perspective, more positive thinking, like a ton of positive thinking. How do I control stress? How do I control the stress in my family life? And it didn't happen immediately, but it was glaring for me what I had to do for myself and my family. We had also come out of a tragedy about 6 months prior to that. And so it was like a double whammy for us in the family, but we made it. I would never trade that experience for anything in this world. It set me on a course of fulfillment. Like I really couldn't anticipate even at that time. And so, you know, if I can reflect on the book real quick, because this kind of ties in.
I was going to say, so do you think that self-compassion was inspired by what you went through, or how did it change? You know, you said that it was a drastic change. How did the book come to be?
Well, the book is kind of, you know, so the book, I've just printed out a copy. It is an ebook on iTunes and Amazon, and it comes in 3 versions. So I printed a version, Little Bat Finds They're Amazing. And the versions that they come in are in the, you know, the pronouns he, his, she, her, and they, their, to honor people who are identifying themselves as such. And so they have a choice of how they want to read the book. But Little Bat is very representative of myself, not only as a girl and a female, but as a mom, especially, and as a daughter. Like, am I being the best person for these people in my life? Am I being the best that I can be for my friends who need me? And what it boils down to is self-love and self-confidence and self-esteem. And so when I wrote the book, I was really in a place where it was clear to me what I've been trying to instill in my daughter, and what I myself am starting to understand through this process with my daughter. I was 18 when I had her, and so we've grown up together, and we've been through some really tough times. Like, you know, you don't just wake up one day and become a mom and know everything that you're supposed to do and how well you're supposed to do it, right? It's like you figure it out along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key things that keeps coming up for me in my relationship with my daughter, as well as with myself and my parents, is time spent and the interest that a person has in another. And the best way I can compare this is when, like, if you think about your friends, your girlfriends, right? Anytime your girlfriends need you, they call you. It could be the most ridiculous story in the world, or the most amazing thing, or they could have done something completely dreadful. And you essentially have no judgment. Like, you might have that friendship, you know, banter back and forth, but at the end of the day, you have your girl's back, right? Yeah. And it's that feeling that I wanted to hone in with my daughter and with my mom. You know, it's like, and with my dad even. It's like, I can give all of this attention and this nurturing and understanding and compassion toward my friends, but I also need to do it with the people who are immediately in my heart, right? And at the core of that is where I feel self-love and self-esteem grows. When you have people who are acknowledging you and acknowledging the things that are important to you, the things that are dramatic to you might not be dramatic to them. There are tons of things that kids come home with that are like not drama at all. And we may, you know, be like, oh, you know, you should do this or you should do that. Or really, honey, it's not a big deal. Just get over it. But really, it is a big deal to them. And if you think back to when you were that young, those situations were probably a really big deal to you, right? And so therein lies the core of building and helping that person build that self-esteem and that love for themselves.
Can you share? Oh, I also want to add that you did the illustrations as well, but can you share like the summary or just a little bit about Little Bat and what she goes through and the animals that she encounters?
Yeah. So, okay. So Little Bat Finds They're Amazing, or her amazing, or his. Essentially, Little Bat goes to school, okay, and comes home and is feeling really down on herself because she's got a wonderful group of friends, and she notices that her friends have lovely things, whether it's, you know, they have beautiful features, or maybe they've got the best school supplies. I remember that being a big deal.
Oh my gosh.
In my day.
Yeah.
Like the friend who had the 64 count Crayola box.
Yes.
Right? They were like the coolest person in school. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was thinking when I was like, okay, I'm going to put Bat in school. Like all of the cool things that I wanted it was in school. It occurred in school, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So Bat comes home from school and says to Mama Bat that, I really would love to have Pig's nose, because Pig has like the coolest nose ever. And, my nose isn't so cool. And so the picture
I love it.
is of Bat with a pig's nose, and it was, it was kind of like to set the tone, we want these things, whether, even now at 44 years old, I've been growing my gray hairs out since November of 2019. And I still look at them and I'm like, oh my God. And I just have to tell myself, I'm like, they're your party streamers, they're your party streamers.
I
Like,
love that,
cool.
party streamers.
They're cool. Yeah. But even inside, I'm like, ooh, pressure to color it. And so the pictures are really to show, while it's cute, it's really not a part of Bat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the acknowledgement from the mom. So Mama Bat is the source of encouragement and the one in the story to help Bat understand what makes little Bat so special. And so Mama Bat says, well, yes, Pig's nose is really cute, but your nose is amazing. Did you know that your nose can pollinate flowers? Did you know that? And when I was researching bats, I didn't know that. Like bats,
I didn't know that too.
They can pollinate avocado and chocolate.
Wow.
Cacao, right? So the story progresses and Bat feels amazing. He's like, you're right, Mama, my nose is amazing. But then Bat is sad again. And Mama Bat's like, what, little Bat, why are you so sad? Well, elephant has majestic ears. And I wish I had majestic ears like elephant, right? And so this continues until we reach a point where little Bat is so weighed down by all of these different aspects of others that they would like to be, or she or he would like to be. Mm-hmm. And so the picture ends up being like,
I love that
characteristics on the Bat. And throughout, little Mama Bat is being very supportive and saying, hey, Tiger's teeth are amazing. He has a beautiful smile, but your teeth are equally amazing. Do you know that you could do these things with your teeth? And do you know that your ears are ultrasonic? And, so Mama Bat really helps little Bat to feel. And by the end of the book, little Bat is just totally stoked on being a little Bat. There are rainbows at the end. I illustrated some rainbows where little Bat is in full acceptance of oneself, and then at the very end,
that's my favorite part. Yeah, favorite. Share that. Yes, yeah? I love it. I thought it was over, and then when I turned it,
yeah. Okay, so
share that.
Book, all right. So the end of the book is Hummingbird, and Hummingbird says, "I wish I had beautiful black wings like little Bat." And that was a nod to anyone out there who is really feeling down about themselves, that there are people looking at you and saying, man, I wish I could have those things, or I wish I could be more like her, more like him. And so not only, should we be special to ourselves, but to also understand that we are special to others.
Well, if you don't role model it, right? I just recently read where if you don't role model it as a mom, then your children don't know how to practice self-love, and they won't know how to be self-compassionate, right? And then they become an adult who feels guilty, right? Mm-hmm. If they take care of themselves. And I thought this is like a perfect book, I think, for all grade levels and even adults, because only recently, don't you think that they've, really have educated us on that's how to deal with stress, that's how to deal with frustration, depression. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. You need to have that balance, right, between mental health and responsibilities. And parents, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and we don't realize it, creating agendas that we feel like we have to do. We've got to do everything in one day. And that definitely contributes to those feelings of failure, setting ourselves up for disappointment when we've completely overbooked ourselves. Plus we're trying to take care of the kids. And what happens is at least for me, when my daughter was growing up, was my career and my work was a huge priority. Her schoolwork was a huge priority. But anything that really nurtured our relationship was kind of like on the side. It was like, okay, we'll do that on the weekend, or we'll maybe we'll do this next weekend. And so there really has to be a balance, you know, in order to feel whole and to really have a clear mind, to not feel guilty or that you're failing at something. Rather, okay, well, you guys have an opportunity there to either improve upon that if I really want that, or maybe that's just not for me. And so, you know, what else is there? Or for
Right.
somebody else, whatever that might be. And so still in my life, I'm still very much little bat in many areas. I catch myself more now, you know, where I'm just like, oh,
Just
wait a
the
minute,
awareness.
you're doing that. Yeah, why don't we go back to this? Well, let's go back to, you know, what we said we were going to do. Or you're stressing out right now about doing the laundry and doing the dishes, and you've still got to study for those 4 exams by the end of the year. Pick one, pick one,
Yes.
right? Because you're starting to set yourself up again to not feel good about yourself. Tying the little bit back to, you know, cancer survival really quick. What was interesting back then, which I can reflect on now, is also feeling like I was a failure in getting that diagnosis. And part of the self-esteem or lack thereof kicked in. And I feel for women in particular, only just because of my experience, that this happens to many women when they go through a situation with cancer, is you know, the threat of losing their femininity through specific surgeries with whatever cancer they are facing, right? And that those parts of us that symbolize femininity, if they're missing, then we are not a complete person. That somehow that is what makes us who we are, and it doesn't.
That's a hard one. Yeah, because I've had
It's so
I had a
hard.
boss who had the mastectomy, and then she, you know, lost her hair, but she made sure that right after her chemo, she went straight to work. I mean, her whole focus was, I am not going to let this impact on my job. And we looked at her and we thought, you need to take time off. And she said, I don't have time for that. I'll do my chemo. I'll leave work earlier. I'll stay later. And we thought,
New purpose, right? Coping
well, yeah, maybe
in
that
that
is a
too, for
coping,
sure.
yeah. So she maybe thought, if maybe, I don't know. We didn't understand that. It's like, you need to put your health first. But now that you explain how, I guess you do feel, I didn't get that when you first said you're a failure, but now I get it. It's because it's not only mortality, but you mentioned, right, maybe feeling like a burden because you can no longer be the caregiver. You go, so is that what happened? You
Yeah,
had
someone
to
else has to care for
embrace,
you. Those are the thoughts, right? Whether or not they come to fruition is a different story, but at
but you
least for me, I
believe those
couldn't stop.
stories.
Absolutely, that is exactly the narrative I was telling myself. And I still see it today in other things that I do. You know, there's a pattern. And so all of that to say that the importance on starting at a young age for parents who have children who are young, starting now to teach them about self-love and self-esteem. They're not going to figure it out on their own. It really does come from nurturing your kids, holding space for them and giving them that time to, whether it's to talk story, take a break from their math homework, or, you know, be silly and be silly with them. Like, you know, not just having them show you how silly they are, but maybe be just as silly back. And letting them know that when they do have those moments that they want to be silly or they want to be serious or they have something dramatic to tell you, that you're going to be there to genuinely listen and give them a part of your time. And I think at the core of that is where they start to build confidence, um, and they feel heard. And so as they get older, you know, when they do have to face things, you know, whether it be a cancer diagnosis or anything, a job, like, you know, not getting the job they wanted or not getting into
Yes.
the school they wanted. It could be anything where anyone would be fairly disappointed, especially if they felt like they tried hard enough. It is so important that if there aren't people around them to pick them up from that, that they can pick themselves up from that, right? And ground themselves and say, okay, what's next? What do I do next? What do I do from here?
Exactly.
And
That's just what happened
so
to my daughter. She just found out she didn't get 2 jobs that she tried out for, and doing ever since the pandemic, she lost her job. It's like you keep
Wow.
applying and then you don't get it.
Yes.
Then you apply and you don't get it. And so I just mentioned how I just overheard where we defined ourselves by either career. If we lose a job, then what are we? And we cannot define ourselves by what we do for a living or what, what our
Yeah.
strengths are. Like you mentioned, like I love the illustration part, right? You were just talking about how we almost don't embrace our gifts because we compare, like little bat, we compare what we don't have and
Yes.
really admire that the other, right? The grass is always green. I was like, but I want that. I want.
Yeah. But it's like, but wait a minute, look at what I have, right? Or yeah, that job didn't work out. So what's next? Right? What's next on
When
my
that's what we were
horizon?
talking about. It's like the excitement of, and she really believes things don't happen for a reason. So I said, you know what? You just got to know. And that's the whole faith in it's going to be exciting. It's going to be something, but you might not experience the success like right now. But it feels like months and months and months of failing. And so
Yes.
you were talking about that too, right? I mean, whenever you go through challenges, it literally feels like you let yourself down, you let the world down.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this
Was I
book,
prepared enough? I
yes.
went through it with the book. I did. I
Oh, you
mean,
were telling me that.
I
Share
went
that
through
real
it
quick.
with the book. I mean, and isn't that funny? Like I'm writing this book about self-love, self-esteem, and it's a reflection of myself. It's a reflection of the lessons I've learned in life. It's the reflections of things that I'm still learning now. And yet I was still finding myself in that situation with the book. So, teaching myself how to write or how to draw the pictures on the Procreate app on Apple, and getting the pen to work right, and feeling this rush to get it done because I'm in the moment right now and I have this rush to get it done. I want to get it out of my brain. I'm also a little bit OCD in that sense, and not quite hitting the mark for myself. But my daughter would look at it and be like, Mom, that is the cutest bat ever. That is so cute.
I
I'm like,
love that bat.
are you sure? And thank you. I'm like,
I
it's
just,
only got like 3 peaks, it's supposed to have like 4 or 5, like all of this stuff going on. And then editing the words over and
oh
over
my
again.
gosh,
And
I know. And you never feel, yeah, and you just have to come to a point where you say, you know what? I'm going to launch it because you keep, right,
yes,
reformatting it. And then you change the words. And then you just wonder, should I just take this
is this
out?
too
Should I add
many?
more in? Right,
Yeah.
right.
Does this fit the age group? Are there too many words? Oh, well, this article said that it shouldn't be any more than 500 words, but this article, and so, and then once you get past that, the whole publishing piece, I was really nervous to click the publish button
Me
because,
too. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, can I really call myself an author? I mean, this is like yes,
Exactly.
I've written for a magazine for, 6 or 7 years, but do I really qualify for author? I don't know about that. And so I really had to dig deep and go, you know what? Yes. And if I'm
Definitely.
not it yet, I'm going to be it, right? Write, publish, repeat.
Well, and
Just
once you
get
hit
it
that
done.
launch and you see it on Amazon, isn't it strange? You just think,
Super.
wow.
It's very surreal. And then of course, I'm sure you did this. You re-edit your book while it's there on the screen. Like you're looking at it on Amazon and you're like, oh, that didn't line up straight. Maybe I need to go in and, reformat it and upload it again. And I
And
allowed
you
myself a
can,
week.
yeah, you can. And I almost did, and I thought no. And I did find two, I think, errors, and I thought no one caught it, but I caught it, and I've been waiting for someone to say, you know what, you actually made it was a spacing. There's two, like it matters. It was double, but that would bother you. In the
Yep.
middle of a sentence, it's supposed to be one space between the words. There are two spaces, which made it to me look very odd. And Sabrina said, Mom, like someone's going to say, there are two spaces between words. But you get
Someone's
so
gonna see it.
nitpicky.
Yeah. And it's like, did I do this right? Did I do this at the right time? Did I do everything that I was supposed to do? Did I get my ISBN number? Is it correct? Okay, now I have
Yes.
to focus on copyright and, what is this type of copywriting versus this? And what's this Kindle program? And so as I was going through it, I felt like, even though I had this important message and I had so much fun and enjoyment out of it, that am I really good enough to do it? Am I good enough to make a
And did
book?
you ever think, is anyone going to read this? I thought that I'm gonna
Oh,
do
that
all this work, and people are gonna be like, why do you
is
have it on
anybody going to read
Amazon?
it?
I
Are
mean,
they going to
that's
like it? Yeah. Is
yeah.
anybody going to like it? Are they going to, and the other interesting thought was I was a very different person, 10, 15 years ago. And I think there's a big part of me, and I think this is an important message as well for people who are, older now, to forgive themselves for who they were when they were younger, and the mistakes that they made. And they didn't even have to be big mistakes. Like, we can beat ourselves up about anything, right? um and to really understand that even at whatever age you're at, you're still growing. There's still things that you're learning. So there's like no particular age where you finally know everything you're supposed to know. Like, to me, that's never going to happen. It's like every day is a growing period. And so when I thought about sharing the message about the book, I looked at myself and I was like, am I really qualified to say these things? Like, have I shown and have I grown in a way that gets me here? And I'm like, well, I have the words, I have the life, I have the experience for it. Yes. Why am I second guessing myself? And it came back to the self-esteem and the self-love. You got to forgive yourself for the things you didn't know. When you were 18 and you were raising your daughter, there are things you did not know. But look at who you are today. Look at who your daughter is today.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She's an incredible human being. She has a heart of gold. And I absolutely adore her. Like, my life would not be much without her in it. And quite frankly, if I would have waited till I was older, I probably wouldn't have children. And
Mm-hmm.
so those are like those self-reflections and the ability to kind of put yourself back in that space and go, yeah, you know what, you were still learning, you were still cool, you were still a pretty kind person, and look at where you are now. I think that is so important
I love that
as
message,
adults.
because I think a lot of us, I was just talking to my friend and she said she can't forgive herself for her husband died of
Mm,
cancer. And she said, I should have done more for him. I should have. And we talked about how no matter how well or how much you do, if that person still chooses to eat poorly or who makes poor choices, is that a guarantee that he would have lived longer? You know what I mean?
yeah,
You carry these regrets and that guilt for what you
absolutely.
think should have been.
Hmm.
And so I love how you said we are always, I mean, it's never, I used to think that when I get it, then things will just be effortless. When you
Right.
really, really understand it, then you won't feel like you messed up. And then you think, oh my gosh, I'm constantly messing up. And then you realize it's part of the journey.
It
I mean, when I
is.
wrote this book and I felt like my girls are like, well, don't you wrote it, Mama's Gotta Let Go. Why aren't you letting go? And I get that thrown in my face. And I finally realize it's in progress. Just because I wrote
Yes.
it does not mean, because then I felt like what you just said. Am I qualified to even say Mama's Gotta Let Go when sometimes I don't let go? And then
Hmm.
someone told me, you're not saying that you know how to let go always. You're saying
Right.
that you're learning that it's better to let go, but it doesn't mean, and so I love how that's what you went through with little bat. It's like, am I there? But
Yeah.
to be
It's
kind to yourself. How did
I'm
you
it's like I'm here. you
yes,
know there's never like
yes.
an I'm there. Like, you have these moments where you sprint forward and you're really in your flow and you've got it and you've figured it out, you've understood the lesson, you're living it. But then you've got a history, you've got things where you go back to and you tap in and you go, okay, wait a minute. Or you have habits, even generational habits, that you forget or didn't understand you had, and you go back to them, you relive them a little bit, and then you start to recognize them more often, and then you call them out, right? You go, okay, that's typically what I do. It's no one's fault. Let's go back. Let's go back to little bat, right? Let's go back to Mama's Gotta Let Go. What was I understanding in that moment that I wrote that? Because that came from me. I knew that at that moment. I hit my stride at that moment. Let's go back and revisit it.
I love
And so it's
that.
kind of like we have these moments where we're grounded, we're solid in that understanding, and you're to expect that you're always going to hold that position is unrealistic. And if
Yeah.
your self-esteem and your self-love is not solid, you're going to find yourself back in that narrative of, or I failed, or I didn't do it right, or maybe I'm not an expert in my own life, in my own opinions, in my own experiences, right? But
Yep.
then there's like there's the hummingbirds out there that are listening to you and going, yes, oh my gosh, I needed somebody to tell me that.
Yeah, thank
And
goodness for those hummingbirds, because I was almost going to quit. Last week I thought, I can't parent, right? When you have these arguments with your child and you think,
Mhm.
who am I to parent when I can't even get in? And my daughter was like, Mom, you're being a little melodramatic. It just means that we're going through. And then I just looked at her and I thought, but I guess I'm a crappy parent. And she goes, don't be a victim. And I guess I do that. You
Right?
just judge yourself and, oh, I can't do this. And then I realized what you just said. And I love, let's close with that. It's like being, what did you say? Being kind to yourself. And like, what should we say when we reflect back to regrets?
I in my, in more recent years have tried not to regret anything anymore. And I quite honestly cannot say that I do regret anything, really.
Yes. So how do
You
you
know?
do that? Because I
Yeah,
think that's what my friend said. I can't, and I said, but it's a choice. She said, I can
it is.
never, I'm having a hard time letting go of guilt. And it normally, so she said, it normally takes me 10 years. And I thought, wait a minute, that,
I think,
that narrative?
yeah, giving yourself a certain amount of time and
Because it took
expectation
her
as
10
well.
years to get
You know?
over, a previous thing. So she thinks at
Mhm.
65, it's going to take her 10 years. And I was trying to explain. So how do you tell someone that it doesn't have to take 10 years?
Right. And it might be her truth. It might be, how she's able to cope with whatever that particular regret is. I think some people have regrets that really affect them in a way that they will never get past, maybe, you know. And for me, the self-forgiveness has played a big part. And not forgiveness in the sense of I did something terrible and now I need to forgive myself for it, but rather just being gentle with the many years before today. With situations, the way I handled them, it was like, yeah, I handled those situations the best way I knew how at that time.
Yes.
Would I handle them the same way today? Definitely not. And I'm reliving and healing a lot of that stuff in not only my own childhood, but also with my daughter. So there are things that I go through to heal my childhood processes, to find different perspectives. I was a latchkey kid. My parents were working all the time, and so I was always provided for. But time spent with my parents was very few and in between. And so as I heal those things, then I reflect on myself and Bree, and I'm like, wait a minute, did I do that to her? Did I pass that on to her? I think I did. Let me ask. And then I ask her, and she'll be, she's usually really sweet about it. Mom, it's not a big deal. I totally like didn't even hold that against you or whatever. And I apologize, and I tell her how much I love her, and we get past it. And then when I reflect, I go, you know what? I did do the best that I could at that time. Would I do that today? Definitely not. And so when I ask myself that, or I tell myself that, would I do that same thing today? I wouldn't. And that is where my I don't know what the word is, where my self-love, I guess, comes into play. And it's like, you're
Well, and
right, I wouldn't do that
self-forgiveness, right?
now.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's like that's been released. I wouldn't do that. And there are times when you're gonna do things that involved other people, and you have to, not you have to, that's like, I don't know, that term drives me nuts, but sometimes I do say it. I did how do I say this? There are situations that you put yourself in through life that also involve other people, and so it's important to understand that they also had a play in whatever that situation was, right?
true.
They had their choices to make in that situation as you did yours. And so when you're trying to forgive yourself for something that happened to others, so like the example with the husband passing away and I should have done more,
Hmm.
that is a very valid feeling to have. And also that person also had choices for themselves that they also had to make, right? And that kind
Yeah.
of helps to lift the burden a little bit from you. Like, you can't carry all of the burden for choices that other people made.
Well, that's the thing. It's releasing what you do not have
tough.
control over. But I think we all
Yeah.
think that, but I can make a positive impact on them. I can influence them to make the right choices. And then you think, no, you don't.
You don't.
You
And
don't.
and you might, your perspective on something, especially something like cancer, you may have a different perspective on it. Something very close and recent that happened to me that I didn't share with you in the green room, but I'm going to bring it up now. My best friend of 36 years passed away from cancer last May. And we had very different views on the disease, and so when she did pass away, that was very hard for me to really, not necessarily get past, because I'm never going to get past it, but to make peace with the fact that she and I had just very different views on how to attack it. And the best thing that I could have done for her, and that I did do for her, was I just supported her choices. In the beginning, it was not that way. We argued with each other, we were not seeing eye to eye, but that wasn't going to get us anywhere, and that wasn't going to get her any healthier or make her any happier. And so, in honoring all that she needed to do for herself, that's where the ability to forgive, or to release and let go, to live in the moment, and to really just appreciate that time, started to really pick up momentum.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I hope that your friend does find a place where, she feels.
It's finding peace. Yeah, it's been 3 years. I can't believe it's been 3 years. My dad passed away 4 years ago, and I also had that guilt that my dad had to do everything for my mom, since she had Alzheimer's. And so when she moved in with us, I saw, I could have done that. I could have picked up her meds. I could have, and then my cousins are like, but he didn't want to burden you with it because he didn't ask me. But I guess he looked at it where I was raising my daughters, and I felt that I should have offered, that I should have known.
That's tough.
Yeah, it just makes me emotional. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. And those are tough expectations to meet, whether they're others' expectations or your own, right?
But like you said, I think that's what I needed to hear. It's like just the self-forgiveness and just compassion, because we're so hard on ourselves.
Yep. And we're very quick to give compassion and the support and the love to other people, right? Because we're caregivers, whether we're dads or moms or cousins or sisters or brothers, whatever we are in other people's lives, we're very quick to offer that support to those loved ones when they need it at the drop of a hat, but we won't do it for ourselves.
Yes.
And so
let's end with that. Yeah, thank you. This is like such a very healing interview, because I think a lot of us need to hear Little Bet's experiences and just the importance of self-love, self-forgiveness, and just compassion towards ourselves, not just others. But thank you so much, Maile, for doing it for the second time.
Yes.
Because I made a mistake the first time. Yes. And so I really appreciate you doing this for me. And I think I'm glad that you had the book. So it's meant to be that we redid it. Let's show the book. I love Little Bet. Yes. And so where can they find it? On Amazon?
Yes, it's an ebook. It's on Amazon and iTunes.
And how can they find you? On Facebook under?
Facebook under Maile Fuchshuber.
Can you spell your last name?
It's Fuchshuber. And the reason I say just search the name is because there are 3 versions of the book.
Yes. So,
yeah. Search for the name, look for the little bat, and it's a good piece to start with. And it is a series, so we'll see what comes next. I'm not sure yet.
So excited to see the next series, and let's get you back, and then you can show the second part. Definitely. Thank you so much, and enjoy your evening.
You too. Take care.
Bye. Bye.